Come, sister. Come purify your soul, sister. Stepping into the Jordan.
Director Francis Schaeffer brings us Headhunter from 1988, sometimes known as The Headhunter. I remember seeing this back in the VHS days on the video rental stores, and I was quite young and I always thought, oh, headhunting, chopping people's heads off, that sounds like a little bit too gory for me, so I never actually watched it back in those days. Now I have. Let's talk about Headhunter. So this focuses on two Miami cops, although it's taking place in Miami, it was actually filmed primarily in South Africa. And they are investigating a series of beheadings, seemingly from Nigerian nationals who have emigrated to Miami. And initially it looks like it could be a serial killer or something like that, but it could be something a little bit more supernatural, as it appears that there is a kind of voodoo spirit demon which is trying to hunt down people who have fled from Nigeria and wants to, you know, get them back into the fold of whatever it is religion that they are they have forsaken, at least in the kind of the demon's eyes. And you know, our cops are very befuddled about all of this, not quite believing it, but as the evidence mounts and the supernatural things start to become more apparent, they have no choice but to believe. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's talk about it. If you like police procedurals, I think this movie might be for you. It isn't a particularly gory film, FYI. You know, there's plenty of other gorier films than this one. There's even not a lot of beheading, if we're being completely honest. So, it is from the point of view of these two police detectives, one of whom's life's in a bit of a mess. He's just getting a separation from his wife, who has left him for someone, living on his partner's couch. And it's following these two guys and their investigation, and a seemingly very underfunded police force with the looks of it, and really just not knowing what they're doing, because it's all very, you know, foreign to them. It's all very kind of like bizarre, and you know, obviously they're police, they follow the facts, and this is something that goes beyond the realms of normality. So you're very much following these two characters who have quite a fun little kind of back and forth. It's actually some quite fun sort of comedic moments. It's not horror comedy, but there is a few comedic moments in the film. But they have quite a good little back and forth, and I think those two do feel like, you know, like work wife and husband is the best way I would sort of describe it. So that kind of relationship was quite good, and these kind of little humorous touches, I think, add a little something to the movie. But if you, as I say, if you like a more of a film which is looking at evidence, talking to people, and gradually kind of like following these guys as they start to believe, then this is going to be the movie for you, because that's more or less what the film is. It is basically just this kind of police investigation. We'll get a few kind of scenes here and there with our mysterious killer, who can seemingly take different forms, a little bit like the T-1000, or sometimes he's missed. The lore in here is a little vague, I won't lie, but he can basically do whatever the writer wants him to do. You know, but mostly it's, as I say, if you like a good cop show, then this might be a movie for you. I have seen some critiques about the kind of the VFX. I don't think they were too bad, I have to say. Practical kind of VFX. We have this kind of creature at the end, and you know, it kind of just looks more like a kind of zombie or a witch or something, but I don't think it looked terrible, if I'm honest. You know, it's a so-so sort of 80s kind of horror movie in many ways. But I think some of the kind of the character work here is what makes maybe this movie somewhat kind of memorable. The kills, you know, there's a few beheadings, but there's not that many, to be honest. But it's a fun idea, I suppose, and we do have a, you know, various shots of kind of, you know, African culture and, you know, things like this to give it a sense of kind of mysticism. And you do have an element of the unknown here. I think for most kind of Western audiences, sort of unfamiliar with, you know, Nigerian folklore or religion and things like that, then, you know, it all might seem very kind of like mysterious and strange in some ways. And I think that the movie sort of does a little bit like, has that kind of feel to it to a large degree, which I think is quite good. And this movie has a real sort of dirty feel. It's to say, it was filmed, a lot of it in South Africa, and as such, the city, meant to be Miami, it feels a lot run down, very cramped, very sweaty, very sort of dilapidated, and it just feels kind of like a almost like a dystopia in some ways, if I'm honest. So yeah, it has this sort of grimy, dirty sort of feel to it. So, you know, it's an interesting idea in regards to a different sort of antagonist, I would suggest. One you kind of haven't typically seen before. And I think the fact that this creature's powers are so undefined gives it an air of unpredictability and a paranoia. So, you know, if you're a fan of things like The Thing, because this creature can pose as people, and you know, you're not quite sure if characters are the real person or if they're this kind of creature posing as a character. So there's a degree of kind of paranoia involved here. What doesn't work in this film, I have to say, I found this movie rather meandering. It really feels like you're spending a lot of time with these police detectives, a lot of whom have a lot of time where they're not really being productive, shall we say, and it's not massively driving the plot forward. So the movie sometimes has a tedium to it, unfortunately, and it's not particularly interesting. I also have to say, I think some of the supporting cast isn't brilliant. June Chadwick turns up, and I used to like her when she was in V. She's in a few scenes as the ex-wife, but there are some kind of supporting cast here which I don't think is particularly kind of strong. But I think probably the most disappointing thing is the real lack of creature in this movie. We really only see it in its true form right at the end of the movie for the kind of the final showdown. A lot of people don't like the VFX. It's nothing special, but I don't personally think it's terrible. But it kind of looks just like a kind of zombie-esque sort of style creature. Maybe not that exciting when you've been waiting the whole length of the movie for it. I think it has some neat ideas. It's got this sword which seems to be always red hot, so it can kind of cauterize wounds. But not a lot is done with it, and we see so little of the creature. And even prior to that point, when the creature is either sort of hidden from us or it's posing as someone else, it's very undefined about how the powers actually work. Like I've said, it more feels like it can just do whatever the writer wants it to do because that's the writer and he wants it to go in a certain direction, so therefore this creature can do this thing. Like sometimes it appears to be flying around because you see like a POV shot, and it's attacking people like Evil Dead sort of style, going through the doors. Sometimes it's posing as people, sometimes it isn't. Why does it have these different modes of doing things? And its end goal as well, we're told through some dialogue sequences that it wants to persecute people who have fled Nigeria, but I thought there's got to be loads, or it wants them to kind of like basically go back to the religion that it's part of. But it never really just seems to offer that people that, it just seems to kill them. I don't know, it's a little bit confused to me, this film, and it's a lot of time spent with these police characters arguing, drinking in a bar, talking to other cops, things like that, talking about marital problems. It's not exactly thrilling stuff. It's not a terrible movie. There's some elements in it that I quite enjoyed, but It's a classic. It's probably why I don't hear many people talking about it these days. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.